Here we go, it begins. Having our very first look of the volume being the Ranger kids oohing and awing at literal concept art should have immediately set off a bunch of red flags in your head, especially later in the episode when they roll into the school and everything is eerily empty. There's a large vacancy with the volume, and this concept art scene should tell you loud and clear. They didn't care, or they couldn't afford to care about the smaller details of quality. I griped about Menagerie not looking as crowded as the characters insisted it was, but at least there are characters there. Lots of characters milling around in the background, just like you'd expect. But here, the school is suddenly a ghost town, and it's weird. Not like weird like how the character's trying to imply it is in the show. No, it's weird because like there should be some characters, right? It should actually be super easy too. Just model the Haven Academy uniform, one of the simplest designed uniforms they had, and take any of these already existing background characters and slap their heads and hands onto the model. By all means, that should have been very easy and the bare minimum. But even then, that was too much for them to handle here, apparently. Volume 5 also starts this trend for the show where buildings and locations are suddenly gigantic for some reason. Every room is a huge mausoleum, and it just further highlights how empty this world feels. The Ranger kids meet with Lionheart, and then they do that same thing as last time, talking a lot without actually saying anything of worth. What's worse is it's actually more specifically like the dialogue Crow and Raven had in Higanbana, where even in hindsight, there's not really anything of value with this conversation. They're dancing around topics so much that nothing of any worth is actually being said or alluded to. At most, we learn some specifics about the maidens, but nothing the characters do or say in relation to this information, or any of the other words in this scene is interesting or entertaining. The characters just stand still and vomit very bland exposition and empty fluff at each other. Weiss's scene is the same, but at least it's mercifully short. Blake's scene is confusing. We jump into Blake's story after apparently there's been some big conflict about getting the information to the public. It feels like we missed an important step here. Also, the pacing in general is terrible. Everything slows down exponentially, but it's really noticeable with Blake's scene. I theorize it was a pathetic attempt to stretch out the runtime further. Golly gee, last time we saw Ilya, she meant business. We better be careful about Ilya. Oh golly, hi Ilya, wanna have a nice little chat? Blake's story will not progress to be more than what this scene offers until episode 8. Cool. Then there's Yang. Suddenly her hands are shaking. Apparently she's adopted this out-of-nowhere side effect for her PTSD between volumes. Sure, why not? Don't freaking put up your finger to him. He just gave you free water. Stop guzzling your drink like a barbarian for 2 freaking seconds and answer him. You're so rude. I hate you so much. I hate Yang so freaking much. Best part of the episode, Weiss's scene. The lighting is nice, the setup for her conflict for the next episode is really well done, Pilot Boy is a fun extra for Weiss to engage with here, but I tell you what, deciding on the best parts for Volume 5 episodes is going to be tough, so bear with me. The worst part of the episode, just the obvious laziness of the whole thing. For Volume 4, I mentioned that they start the volume on a high note, really impressive animation quality especially, so it's massively disappointing seeing this bland, half-hearted animation quality here. A huge downgrade in quality from last time, and this is only the first episode. The episode that's meant to hook the audience into watching the rest of the volume. If they're willing to make this episode look so lazy, slow, empty, heartless, what does that say about how they've approached the rest of the volume? This episode is 4th best of the volume, but don't let that seemingly high number fool you. Even the best of episodes in Volume 5 is still hot garbage compared to the rest of the show. This one, despite it all, mostly is just bland and boring. Clearly they can find much more disappointing ways to ruin these episodes.
What am I even looking at?
Oh yeah, I've kind of forgotten to mention the setup for Lionheart's betrayal of the team, mostly because I don't know, they do it in a pretty boring way. Before we even see this man, we're told he's working with the villains, and his role in the villains' plans is kind of boring too. He doesn't do much, except he has apparently already done some shady paper handling that got all the available huntsmen and huntresses killed, but all that has happened before Ranger even knocked on his door, so he doesn't really do anything throughout the volume. So us, the audience, knowing he's teamed up with the villains kinda goes nowhere until the finale, a running theme of Volume 5. Nothing will really matter until the last 4 episodes, making you wonder why this volume drags itself out for 14 whole episodes when only 5-ish of them actually do anything. Anyways, beyond Lionheart's confusing waste of screen time, the rest of this episode is actually really fun. Weiss's fight with the Lancers is one of the coolest fights they've had. The airship flying around the floating islands is a super cool setting and circumstance for Weiss to deal with. The Lancers are a cool grim. It's all really fun. Definitely one of the few highlights of the volume. Then after that, we got Adam's crazy, unexpected assassination of Sienna. Don't get me wrong, Adam is not interesting, and after this moment he never gets half as interesting as this scene would suggest, but this was a pretty over-the-top surprise. The best part of the episode. Specifically, Weiss summoning the Armageddon, and getting the finale of the fight lined up with the rock part of This Life Is Mine. Just all of that was really cool. Honestly, I wish we hadn't have seen her fully summon the knight back in Volume 4, because if this was her fully mastering the summoning, that would have been an awesome way to punctuate this part of her training arc. Also, I just really like the song. Cool fight, great finale. The worst part of the episode? The weird way Salem handles Leo. I've talked about it at length before, but threatening him seems like a goofy decision. She should be his bastion of safety. He's already a coward. He would be more loyal to a protector rather than to a threatening force. Just everything about Lionheart is kind of done poorly all volume. This is the second best episode of the volume. The thrilling fight, the turbulent story beats with Adam, the cliffhanger of Weiss being captured by Raven's bandits, it's legitimately fun stuff. Way better than the Snorefest from the first episode.
So an hour and a half, and like, okay, we fixed the mechanical problems on the plane, like, finally. And one of the engines under the left wing, like, starts spitting out this huge, billowing black smoke. And I'm like, maybe they didn't fix this problem.
Remember how fun episode 2 was? Well, that didn't last long. This is one of the most fascinatingly, uniquely boring episodes I've ever watched from any show. Nothing happens. It's all pointless. We start with Gira slowly monologuing about nothing. Ilya confronts him slowly, and then she escapes literally so slowly that I actually assumed she was trying to goad Sun into following her as like part of an ambush or something. Why else would she be so slow? Blake literally doesn't speak all episode. This whole scene was pointless. The people of Menagerie were already not on board with their plans of taking a bunch of civilians across the world to protect a school of training warriors as a show of how helpful the faunus can be for humans. You know, when you say it out loud, it really highlights how cruddy the writing for the White Fang plot really was. Give up your lives of comfort, go to war for humans to show them how subservient faunus are. That'll win humanity over. Honestly, all this boring scene is really here for is to have Gira word vomit a bunch of really boring exposition. He explains his stepping down from the White Fang and Sienna's taking over. I would say it's a good thing to have characters establish world-building elements and important history in universe. Too often, Rooster Teeth would trap world-building information in the various supplemental material, so I assume the scenes like this one with Gira and then later with Ozpin was an attempt to remedy this issue, but the way they go about it is just really poorly done. First, it's information that, in the long run, is pointless. By this point, Sienna is already dead. Knowing about ancient history between Sienna taking over after Gira is unimportant. It won't change our progression with Sienna as a character. She's exited the story. It doesn't change Blake's plot for the volume. It doesn't even really have anything to do with Gira's plan to throw the people of Menagerie at Haven's feet as security guards. This information information, while neat to learn, I guess, is pointless. Second, it takes way too long, and it's shot super boringly, like we saw with Lionheart in episode 1. Too often, characters will stand stock still while the camera spins listlessly around them. Visually, this is super boring, making it even easier to zone out and ignore what Gira is even trying to say. It's not just Gira, it's Ozpin's info dumping about possessing Oscar. It's Vernal's teasing of Weiss about Atlas's soldiers. This episode is mind-numbing white noise. The best part of the episode? Vernal. I like her. I really wish she got to do a lot more for the one volume she gets to live in. I like her voice actress's performance. I like the way she carries herself. She could have been way more cool if they gave her more screen time. The worst part of the episode. The comedy, ugh. It's especially bad during the ranger scene. It's so basic, slapsticky, or just have Nora scream. Nora screaming is not a punchline. They linger on, quote-unquote, funny moments so long the joke just dies as you're waiting for something to happen. They try to use their garbage tone shifts as a punchline, and it's just... no, don't do that, obviously. It makes an already boring episode to sit through an excruciatingly annoying and cringy episode instead. This is the 9th episode on my list. 3 episodes in and the quality has been all over the place.
We like what you've got.
Say something inappropriate, though.
Right off the bat, I can't stand Yang's better than you, try hard, cool guy shtick here. It's bad. I miss the bubbly, fun-loving, cool bombshell from volumes 1 through 3. This pissy, pouty, holier-than-thou drama queen sucks. And I know, oh, but she lost her arm, of course her personality would change. Yeah, but why did the writers make her change for the worse? Usually development like this makes the characters more interesting or entertaining. I hate modern day Yang. She has absolutely no redeeming qualities, and there's not even a hint of the character I originally loved from volumes 1 through 3. As a writer, why would you want to ruin your characters as a part of their quote-unquote development? It also doesn't help that this is the beginning of Barbara seemingly just giving up with her voice performance for Yang. There's no energy here, no passion. It just feels like Barbara is phoning it in, and this becomes the standard for Yang for the rest of the show.
I said, send me to Crow, damn it!
For some reason, she can't sound happy or excited convincingly anymore.
But I doubt it. I'm her daughter, after all.
And her moody, broody performance also sounds like someone trying too hard to put on a performance.
Good to know.
RWBY and Oscar train. It's not good. RWBY's combat training is a dumb plotline. It just tells me loud and clear that the writers had absolutely no idea what to do with her this volume. I mean, she doesn't do anything all volume, she plays no big role in the finale, and doesn't do anything substantial as a character throughout the rest of the volume. So they slap this bland plotline of learn to headbutt once so she can do that one thing and pretend like it was an arc here. And then it's back to the heavy exposition. This time about things we've already known about for years. Wow, what a cool change of pace. Rather than a character sitting around droning out boring, bland fluff about pointless information, we have characters sitting around droning out boring, bland fluff about repeated information. Quality content. The best part of the episode, Yang and Weiss hug. Whether you ship them or not, this is very sweet. It's animated well, and the armor Gigas fluttering away is a visual flair that makes this already prominent moment even more memorable. We've come a long way from Volume 1, where a Yang hug was the worst part of an episode. Good job. The worst part of the episode, everything with Yang and Raven. The height of the dialogue problem, where characters just talk at each other. They don't seem to be listening or acknowledge whatever each other says anymore. More dead set on spitting out chunks of their own little monologues one sentence at a time. Yang's whole plan here was also completely stupid. Why did she do this? She came here to ask Mommy to help her teleport to RWBY. Supposedly, Yang has been trying to find Raven for a large portion of her life, so having her easily roll into Raven's camp with seemingly no effort really undermines Yang's motivations and makes her her come across as incompetent. You found Raven in seconds. Why did you struggle with it so much before? Also, if her ultimate goal is to just get to Ruby, surely it would have been easier, in-universe, to hunt Ruby down. She left a letter at the end of Volume 3. I think visiting Haven would be one of the first ideas Yang would come to when it came to tracking her down. Also, here she is, finally in front of Raven, the mother who abandoned her. In Volume 3, she seemed really torn up, really wanted to see Raven again. And now that she's here, she doesn't care anymore. No questions, no explanations, no nothing. What was the point? I actually cannot understand how a writer, any writer, would have this scene occur and seem to fundamentally not understand the point behind why people wanted to see this scene. How can the writers be seemingly so bored and uninterested in their own story? They set up these things. These are their characters. How can you, as a creative, give this little care to your own story? This is the 7th episode on my list, but don't be fooled. This is not as mid as the number would lead you to believe. Honestly, everything from number 4 down are what I would actually call bad episodes. Disappointment was really the flavor of the day here.
I spilled lipstick in your Valentino bag.
Oh, you spilled lipstick in my Valentino white.
This one will be short. This is the most forgettable episode for the volume, because it focuses on Blake and Ruby, the two characters who have the least to do all volume. Blake and Sun go out looking for signatures, I guess. They're trying to pitch recruitment for the Faunus army on the streets, and that's weird. Like, not only is it a weird thing for Blake and Sun to busy themselves with in-universe, there should be much better ways they can pitch this defense mobilization cause to the people of Menagerie. But also, this is a weird decision by the writers. Aw, you know what'll be a totally fun moment for our action anime? Two characters holding clipboards and asking passerbys for signatures. Yippee! Oscar is back to training, I guess. They have him train a lot, likely to better convince the audience that he can actually hold his own for a while in the finale. That's fine, but they go about it in a weird way. Specifically, a boring way. He's always separated from the group, by himself, usually only chatting with Ozpin in his head. This scene doesn't grow him and Ruby closer together. It's just Ruby getting nostalgic and monologuing at Oscar. Both scenes feel like the writers were trying too hard. Trying really hard to have these shallow characters churn out dialogue that can kind of sound poignant, and it just does not work. The best part of the episode, Ilya's scene. Listen, the Albane brothers don't get a ton of establishment as villains. This scene is like their only time to establish their sinister motivations. On that note, Adam also gets a rare moment of actual threatening dialogue for him, but the best part is watching Ilya in real time start to realize she might not be as on board with the White Fang's new violent direction as she initially thought. I'll cover Ilya more in detail in a later episode, but rest assured, she is the best part of the volume in general. The worst part of the episode, Blake's terrible conversation with Sun. It's so weird watching Blake boil down her friends into simplistic, basic, one-word descriptions. Not only is it a bad scene that is not as endearing as the writers clearly thought it was, but also it kind of highlights how the characters have not developed since the beginning of the show. Ruby is still purity, Yang is still strength, Weiss is still defiance. Descriptions you could use for these characters back in Volume 1. On top of that, these are really basic descriptions for Blake, their friend in-universe, to come to. This sounds more like Blake is reading the back of the DVD box. There's no personalization in these words, it's just Blake babbling vague ideas to fill screen time. A waste of screen time, and a peek at just at how simplistic and boring the writers are when it comes to how they view their own characters. Blake can only be as creative as the writers can be. And so seeing the writers still describing Yang is strong, Ruby is pure, screams to me that they don't care about the depths of their own characters. This lands at number 5. Oh, episode 2 and 5 both landed on their ranking number that matches their episode number. That's neat.
This one's to end racism.
Do you want to watch 3 characters sitting around almost completely still while they slowly snort out aimless dialogue that doesn't actually introduce anything new or develop the personalities of the characters? Well, if you said yes, congratulations, this garbage is here for your enjoyment. I cannot think of a bigger failure of a conversation. Raven's waxing poetics is pointless, and usually I think Anna Hullum does a good job with her performance for Raven, but here, I don't know, Raven sounds so nasally and lost that it's actively distracting.
A story of victory for one person is a story of defeat for someone else.
And really, the whole scene is a culmination of every problem I've had with the dialogue scenes this volume. Dragged out pace for no reason except to pad runtime? Check.
Question everything.
Talking at each other rather than having a real conversation? Check.
You left us! Why?
I know more than you realize. Not just about you, and not just what I've been told, but things I've seen.
Droning exposition about pointless factoids that change nothing for the story and have no impact on the characters? Check.
Huntsmen were the only ones capable of ruining our raids and hunting us down. Our tribe needed a counterforce.
Droning exposition about topics we already know about, so it's just repeated information to catch the characters up on the plot that we've known about for years now? Check-a-rooney.
The creatures of Grimm have a master named Salem.
I know I already mentioned Yang's plan being dumb, but man, it really is dumb. She showed up to the woman, who already abandoned her as a child, and rolled up and demanded a favor from her? Why? Why? Yang and Weiss did nothing to accomplish their goals. They show up and begged Mommy Dearest to drop them off at the movie theater. They didn't have to do anything to get this favor from Raven. They didn't have to fight or struggle or grow. They just sat around and smashed the A button a bunch of times until Raven's dialogue options ran out, and then Raven gave them exactly what they wanted. The reunion at the end feels hollow and unearned because no one put any effort to get this to happen. The best part of the episode? Crow. Like, his shenanigans. The barely touched on plotline about Leo sending all the local huntsmen and huntresses on death traps is explained pretty well here. It tugs at your heartstrings a bit, even if it is pretty easy to see coming. Hell, at least there's some background characters in Mistral, finally. Worst part of the episode. The boring cinematography and animation. Don't move. No moving. Slow camera scroll. Bad close-up. Pan across the ugly map texture in the background. Better not move! Oops, we accidentally almost had something happen in our cartoon! Hey, is it obvious that we rushed our animations for this volume? Abusing our animators and forced them to tarnish their reputations by churning out lazy animations like this to reach unobtainable standards we set for ourselves because we want to pretend like we're professionals? This episode is number 8. Truly skippable. A chore to sit through. Worthless, boring, ugly, just another random episode to stretch out the runtime of the volume as a whole that ends up being a waste of time. But hey, it can't get much worse, right? What episode is next? Oh no.
I come to make an announcement. Shadow the Hedgehog's a bitch-ass motherfucker. He pissed on my fucking wife. So I'm making a call-out post on my twitter.com. Shadow the Hedgehog, you got a small dick.
Immediately, this is the worst episode of Volume 5. Not only that, this might be the worst episode of the whole show. I actually can't believe how everything is done so poorly. And it's not like the rest of the volume, you know? We're 7 episodes in, and the general complaints I've had for nearly every episode has been that it's slow, boring, and pointless. Which is true, but this episode goes beyond all of that. It's not only slow, with long, drawn-out pauses between scenes for no good reason. Not only is it boring, as characters babble about things we've already seen and heard of before, offering nothing new or interesting with their assortment of personalities. Not only is it pointless with how the conflict of them being upset that Crow was given superpowers goes practically nowhere, but on top of all of that, it's also so annoying. Right off the bat, we just have the characters screeching at each other obnoxiously. RWBY's earblood, high-pitched voice cuts over the crowd like an audio assassin to my ears. The kids share stories with each other, but rather than seeing them processing their emotions about what they've gone through, or share compelling moments of friendship where they address the circumstances around the unique events their friends have faced in their absence, instead, they just try to make each story a punchline. Ha ha ha, Weiss summons a boar. Ha ha, Ren doesn't realize he was cool. Ha ha, someone end my suffering. Chew your food. Move. Do something. Somebody move, please. Arm wrestle. Blah. Oh, but ha 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 ha. Yang launched Nora away, which was weird and dumb. Like, it sets up the fact Yang can detach her arm, but one, it makes no sense in universe, because it means no one won the arm wrestle. Two, the way it launches her backwards made people think it can be launched like a rocket. But no! The writers went back and tried to explain that this happened because of the strength of Yang and Nora's arm wrestle. No, I'm not surprised these two idiots don't seem to have any experience with arm wrestling in real life, because that doesn't make any sense. 3, it is really a slap in the face of having Yang laughing maniacally at the joke of removing her arm. Oh, like it wasn't a huge part of her character development to accept putting the arm on in the first place? Move. Stop smirking like that. Do something. I hate your dumb, ugly face. It's Moody Jean. Look at him, posing over there, being a mood. Wow, no one else gets to be a character. Good thing Jean is here to be a broody baby about everything. Nora screams! That's a punchline, right? Nora screams. Laugh, damn it! We don't know what comedy is anymore because we're morons. Time to be a big oopity poopity mad about Ozpin for no reason. How dare you give our awesome uncle awesome superpowers? My mommy, who abandoned me as a baby, who I also hate, told me not to like you, so I don't like you. I never thought I'd welcome the boring exposition dumps with open arms, but after the obnoxious scream fest from the dinner scene, RWBY's usual bland droning feels like a masterpiece. Oh, is something gonna actually start happening? Nope, it's just a cliffhanger. Wouldn't want anything fun or entertaining to happen in our cartoon. Why did our company go bankrupt? It's a mystery! The best part of the episode? Nothing. Like, seriously, I can't even find some stupid small detail that would be worth praising. Absolutely fucking nothing. The worst part of the episode, all of it, it just feels like an insult to the audience. Everything about this episode is lazy, half-hearted, ugly, bland, boring, and dumb. And the fact they have the audacity to jazz it up like this is some big moment for the kids is disgusting. Ren sits there and insists they've all grown a ton, and they've had such great strides as characters, but the fact Ren has to sit there and try to spell it out for us actually just highlights how little they've grown. If anything, some of these kids have regressed as characters. RWBY, the girl who was introduced to us by breakdancing on top of her scythe to mollywop Grimm with her boots, now suddenly can't handle a single sparring session without Crescent Rose in her hands. Yang has lost any redeeming quality for her personality, and Weiss has been demoted to damsel in distress. And the icing on this crap cake, Oscar is entirely omitted from this scene. He hasn't even gotten to meet Yang or Weiss yet, and by this point, he's barely even talked to Ranger. Usually, he just gets possessed by Ozpin and becomes a walking, talking textbook. This episode could have had him play the role of New Kid, where his questioning could prompt the others to start getting retrospective, all the while establishing him as a new friend for the crew. But no, because we've arbitrarily decided Yang needs to have a stick up her butt about her mommy getting magical superpowers. Ozpin and by proxy Oscar need to be relegated to her emotional punching bag. I hate this episode. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. In a volume already marred by buffoonish writing and lazy animation, this episode manages to stand out as an even worse ball of scum amongst the rest of the garbage.
Stay right here or disappear, and nobody'd even notice at all.
Okay, thankfully, This episode is actually pretty good, or at least it's really trying. We finally actually get a moment where Weiss, RWBY, and Yang actually just get to talk to each other, explore their headspaces, and remind me why I like these characters in the first place. And finally, it feels like Yang is going through a new emotional arc. She's not just moody, broody because I guess the writers think she seems cool that way. No, her emotional turbulence is clearly a side effect of Blake leaving the team, and I really like that we actually have them addressing this. Then the follow-up with Weiss trying to help Yang unpacking her emotions over this, I do like. Admittedly, the first half of the scene is sort of bad. They sit so still that it takes me out of the moment a bit. Can you please move like a human being and not like a plastic doll? Thanks. Yang makes a confusing detour to the conversation by comparing her family life to Weiss for some reason. She implies Weiss's family life was way better because Weiss's family is famous and she has a huge family.
I don't think you know what it's like to be left. You have a giant family.
Which is a weird point for two reasons. One, Yang's family is also big. Counting her, Tai, RWBY, and Crow, who must have been around pretty regularly, their family has 3 to 4 members, which is only 1 member less than Weiss. 2, one of the few things Weiss has actually discussed about her family in front of Yang is how horrible and abusive it was. It was just a weird angle for Yang to take the conversation, both in-universe and as a decision by the writers. Then in response to it, Weiss also has a really weird tangent where she expositions about how bad her parents' relationship is. But once the topic finally gets back to Blake and Yang, this scene is legitimately endearing. And this is a side of Yang and Weiss we don't get to see often. Legitimately, this heart-to-heart is a highlight for the two girls, especially in this volume. That gets paired with Blake's plot starting to, be a thing finally. Getting ambushed by Ilya, where Ilya reveals her own woes about Blake leaving her behind. A dark mirror to Yang's conflict, which is cool. And we tease a fight with a Belladonna mansion, where the safety of Gira and Kali is questioned. An exciting start to this plot point, but we'll get to how well it's actually executed later. The best part of the episode, the dialogue. The dialogue has been a major complaint throughout the volume, but here with Yang and Weiss's heart-to-heart, that scene with the girls talking over coffee, and Ilya's confession, finally it feels like the writers have figured out something they want to say. Their words aren't just empty fluff or exposition. We get new revelations about their personalities and developments. Ilya's whole scene is actually a great example of how to do exposition, but doing it well. Blake's responses to Ilya's words, Ilya using her exposition to explain her motivations moving forward with the assassination attempt. The camera actually gets used to show the dynamics of their conversation. Yes, you can do it, RWBY! I knew you could! The worst part of the episode... RWBY. What a worthless character. While we watch every other member of her team reach new twists and turns emotionally and with their plots, there RWBY is, in the background, doing nothing, contributing nothing. Don't forget her terrible voice making me want to rip my ears off.
Oh yeah, nice voice strikes again.
Please, never speak again. I will throw up if you do. What a crazy idea, to think that the show is at its best when the main character was omitted from the actual emotional scenes. This is the 3rd best episode of the volume. It does have some hiccups, but overall, it's much better than most of the episodes we've seen.
That is so fetch. Gretchen, stop trying to make fetch happen. It's not going to happen.
I'm kind of at a loss. There's just nothing to say about this episode. Remember that villain cliffhanger 2 episodes ago? Well, we get that payoff by skipping the interesting sounding fight between Emerald and the bandits, and instead jump straight to the characters doing the same thing they've been doing all volume, standing still and word vomiting at each other. What really stands out with this particular info dump is the uniquely befuddling decision with the characters. Raven reveals she'll team up with the baddies to kill Crow, even though this sort of goes nowhere and isn't, explained or anything. Mercury, Emerald, and Watts don't do anything. Why were they here? Watts especially. He does not seem like the kind of guy to get boots on the ground just to mean mug bandits and try to shoot down Cinder's ambitions. Cinder really actually shoots us with the old, "Are you with us or against us?" trope.
Are you with us
or against us.
Blake continues from her cliffhanger from last time, but ending off on a virtually identical cliffhanger this time. Also, Oscar approaches Crow to tell him that something needs to start maybe happening in the next episode. They really were just desperate to stretch out the episode lengths, huh? Best part of the episode. Cinder and Watts get one brief moment of snippiness with each other.
Fly back home and tinker with your machines.
That's fun. Their rivalry dynamic is a unique element for their characters. It gets much more depth later on in the Atlas arc, but it's cool seeing this idea beginning to be set up here. The worst part of the episode, Blake's stupid ice clone. What a goofy, silly, dumb moment. It's actually hilarious how sloppy this all is. First of all, her executing the clone was slow and lazy looking. Not lazy like the animators were lazy. Lazy like it looks like all the characters in the scene are falling asleep. Then watching her and the dudes stand perfectly still, having a very long conversation, while the Albane brothers sit perfectly still, 5 feet in front of them, patiently waiting for their dagger to melt the ice. Oh, don't worry. You're just in the middle of trying to assassinate one of these people in front of you. Don't bother putting any effort into this. Blake runs away in such a goofy way, too. Why did she move like Pac-Man? It's all so goofy. It cracks me up. This is the number 6 episode for my ranking. It's mostly forgettable, but some of the goofiness with the flaccid actions and the unique scenario of the villains trying to make plans makes it a little more noteworthy than things like episode 4. Finally, after 2 episodes of cliffhangers, the Belladonna Mansion attack gets to finally play out. Yes, it is awfully goofy at times. Both Albane brothers and Gira seem to be putting no effort into this. Collie's bodyguards wearing full plate armor cower behind a pillar, while Collie, the unarmored queen who they're meant to be protecting, is standing in the middle of the room facing the assailants. Effort? What's that? Though beyond those things, there are some pretty cool moments. Some of the coolest action moments for the volume. Sun shows off his gunchucks for the first time since Volume 1, and this combo on Ilya is legitimately really well done. Ilya's fight in general is cool thanks to her unique electrified pistol whip thing, and they do seem to really be trying to do something different with this fight, with her and Blake. Yes, Ilya turning off the lights is very, very dumb and silly. The Faunus can see in the dark. Yes, Blake deciding to burn her own house down rather than just turning the lights back on also is a very silly, dumb choice. But again, beyond that, the emotional moment when they finally get face to face is the core of what carries Ilya's arc, and serves as an emotional new motivational factor for Blake moving forward. Blake's big motivational speech at the end doesn't really work though. She sets her own house on fire and then says that the Faunus needs to stop Faunus violence like this? No. Listen, the problem with the Faunus and the White Fang stretched throughout the whole show. I'm not gonna act like this tone-deaf call to arms is anything new. The best part of the episode, really, Ilya's character arc. Her arc for the whole volume was the best part of the whole thing. Her motivations, her recollections, her backstory. If you watch the Blake character short, the finale of her arc is perfectly executed, and is actually a redeemed character arc done right in the show. Ooh, Bumblebee this, oh, Black Sun that. Screw all that noise. Reading Rainbow, it's right here. Look at this. This works. Their chemistry works. Come on, this is what I want. Worst part of the episode. The whole beginning scene with RWBY talking to Ozpin and Crow. Yeah, how many people even remembered this scene was in this episode? It's just a waste of time. Oscar once again gets omitted for Ozpin's exposition dumping. The old dudes are suddenly hyper suspicious of Lionheart for no real reason. Like, not only did they become suspicious out of nowhere, but even with the suspicions, they waltzed into the obvious trap Lionheart sets up willy-nilly in the next episode. It's boring, it's lame, it's what you expect from Volume 5. Despite its flaws, this is my my favorite episode of Volume 5. It's really Ilya's character arc shooting it up that high. And, well, given how there's only 4 episodes left of the volume, and you can see what the remaining places of my ranking are, I think you can guess how well the finale of the volume is going to go.
I just wish we could all get along like we used to in middle school. I wish that I could bake a cake made out of rainbows and smiles.
She doesn't even go here.
Do you even go to this school? I just have a lot of feelings.
Oh boy, here we go. At this point, I had given up on my hopes that the languid pacing was a sign that they were saving their quality for a big, important moment. Sometimes animated shows will have lower quality for their animation in less important episodes, so they can really pop off during the big moments to be more of a visual spectacle. It happens all the time with anime. A lot of Volume 5 was very unimpressive. Lazy, stilted, boring animation. For a while, I had really hoped maybe, just maybe, that was because they wanted to save their quality budget for the big finale of the volume. And after episode 10, with the cool lighting effects and Sun's gunchucks and everything, a tiny spark of hope sprang back inside of me. But then I watched as everyone slowly waltzed into the gigantic empty room with Lionheart, and watched as no one moved or reacted as the villains poured into the scene, and everyone sat still and didn't talk or move, and that spark of hope was extinguished like a candle. I've talked at length about Ruby's voice being the worst thing ever, but let's not sleep on how garbage, terrible Cinder's performance became during this volume.
Your sister was a recent addition. The lion, on the other hand.
Jessica Negri sounds lost, like she's reading her script for the first time as she's saying her words, and doesn't know what emotion she's supposed to be delivering, like she has no context or clue as to what's actually going on for her character. Now, I think Jessica Negri gets really, really good after this volume, getting exponentially better with each passing volume from here on out. So I can only believe this was a failure on the director's part, giving her no clear idea for what her performance should be. Oh, don't worry, I'll get to you. Watching everyone pair themselves off with their one designated fighter is silly. It immediately becomes clear that the animators were overwhelmed by the abundance of characters in this scene. Characters vanish from behind each other, the size of the auditorium shifts and changes wildly, characters teleport around, telling me there was no consistency being checked between the animators' scenes. Animators who were already rushed and struggling to pump out action scenes, which typically takes a lot more time and effort than talking scenes, with no time or budget to be found to help them. Lionheart's shield is tiny and looks really dumb. This is one of the ugliest effect animations I've ever seen in the show, and it's a dumb excuse for a weapon. Weiss suddenly becomes a moron and can't fight just to give us a pointless cliffhanger. Oh no, will one of the main characters die? No, obviously not. She's not even bleeding a lot or anything. As far as critical hits our main characters have suffered from, this is definitely the lamest. We get Ruby and Emerald casually chatting while Ruby lazily twirls her plastic toy around and magically deflects all of Emerald's bullets. All the while, Emerald does absolutely nothing to better her aim or anything. A perfect encapsulation of how little care the creators put into this volume right here. The best part of the episode, honestly, it's really funny, but not because they wanted it to be. The whole volume is just a rotting black hole when it comes to its attempts at comedy. I've made that abundantly clear. But here, this buffoonish mess of disasters is actually funny. Like how The Room is funny. It's a laugh riot watching characters have a whole conversation while pathetically swinging their weapons around. It cracks me up seeing the animation from the opening being weirdly tossed into the middle of the action, not even trying to hide how many corners they're cutting. It's funny how pathetically bad this finale is, because if you don't laugh, you're just gonna cry. The worst part of the episode, Jean!
I'm gonna make you pay for what you did!
Do you hear me? All with that damn smile on your face! Stop messing with me! No!
Jean fully ascends into being the worst waste of screen time who I hate. Oh my god, you gigantic drama queen, shut the hell up for 7 seconds. Yes, Miles, you are very talented. Wowee, listen to you acting your little ass off. Wow, you sure can scream and cry. We're all so impressed. Now can you please put the obnoxious character you happen to voice away for a second so a single other character can get to emote at all? That's the thing that really grinds my gears. Not that Jean is a caterwauling mess, it's that he's the only one who gets to be a special little snowflake. No one else gets to have a reaction to Cinder, the girl who killed Pyrrha? Not even, oh I don't know, Ruby? The girl who actually saw Pyrrha die? Nora and Ren have no reaction to the killer of their friend/teammate. What about the other nerds? Yang isn't shocked to see Mercury? Last she saw this kid, she was questioning her mental state because she had turned his kneecap into a casserole. No one's reacting to Emerald? The girl who they all thought was their friend? Does anyone want to do anything? No? Just Jean? Just Miles's special little boy he happens to voice and write for? Sure. Even during the fight, Cinder forgets entirely about her grudge against Ruby. Literally, the thing that made her want to come here in the first place. To instead tease Jean with personalized insults. Because I guess Cinder cares enough about Miles's special voice boy or something. She's stepping on your armor. This shouldn't be stopping you. Hell, all you did was trip. What a worthless, pathetic, stupid loser you are. Volume 5 Jean is the worst. This lands at number 12 on my list. Yes! You see that right. One of these last few episodes is gonna be worse than this one. Oh boy, I can't wait.
It's Brittany, bitch. And I am back in the form of a new company, the Michael Scott Paper Company.
This episode picks up right where we left off. Don't worry though, you can get up and grab some snacks. Nothing's gonna start happening until about 7 minutes in. The name of the game with this one is filler. Every event is dragged out for way too long, and once something starts to happen, like Hazel fighting Oscar, or Yang fighting the bad kids, as soon as it starts, we instantly cut away. You can really feel the strain on the animators here. They're cutting away from the action pieces because it's easier and faster to animate a couple of characters milling around, and they do not have the time or budget to polish this to look good. Yes, all 3 of you just stop fighting to stand around chatting in the middle of the room. Great job. There's a lack of urgency with all the characters. Suddenly, most of our heroes become content with sitting around on the floor. Oscar's section pisses me off because it kinda spits in the face of Oscar's whole role for this volume. Every single scene we saw had Oscar training. That was all he did. He just trained. Any other time, Ozpin was taking over his body to exposition dump. So I hate that Ozpin takes over for the rest of the fight here. Why waste all of Oscar's screen time on him training if he's not even going to have that effort pay off for him in the end? I'll give them this. There's a slight moment when the quality kicks in. Ozpin does an impressively animated combo against Hazel, and the design of the tree is legitimately really cool. The glowing petals from the tree are really unique and visually stand out as a location element, although it kinda leaves a bad taste in my mouth when immediately after these moments we get some of the silliest moments in RWBY. Watching Yang and Crow struggling so hard is made even funnier when we constantly cut back to RWBY and the others sitting around doing nothing but watching the fights. Ren, you didn't do anything helpful with Weiss. Get in there with Yang, she obviously needs help. Jean unlocks his semblance, so he can get to be a special snowflake in this episode too. Don't worry, Jean always needs to be the special little special boy. Best part of the episode, Raven's reveal to this day. One of the best twists in the show. Some people had theories about Vernal and her status as maiden, but this big reveal is a pretty dramatic way of showing us the twist. Cinder's cool double cross, Vernal's unexpected death, Cinder's confusion as she realizes she's been duped, Raven's big mask off reveal, iconic. Fantastic. Cannot praise this enough. Worst part of the episode. Oscar and Hazel. Ugh, it's just so silly. I've spent plenty of time talking about how dumb Hazel's motivations as a villain are, especially his grudge on Ozpin. Oscar's dialogue is worded so vaguely, and Hazel's motivation seems so dumb that a lot of people had actually theorized Ozpin had lied to Oscar about Gretchen's death. We all thought there was going to be a big reveal for this story, but no, that ended up not happening. The fight is lame, Oscar's body hijacking is lame, Hazel's combat style and jacketless outfit is hyper lame, and this is the real meat of the episode too. What a waste. This lands on number 11. Only 2 episodes left.
Man, that was easy.
Thank God fish aren't into cash.
Like they're stealing my cash?
Yeah, well, alright, I'm gonna be honest with you. I fell asleep for a second there. Like a 2-second dream that like fish were stealing stuff. And then I said it out loud and I was like, Aaron, I dreamed that. Aaron didn't see any of that fish thing that I just went through.
Hark! Ruby's character arc. She headbutts Mercury 1 time. Hooray! Wasting the whole volume on her training for this to be literally the one and only payoff she gets was definitely worth it. What makes this dumber is actually everything around it. She kind of just drops her scythe because Mercury sneezes too hard. It lands right next to her too. At the time it took Mercury to goad her, she could have just easily grabbed it. Also, apparently Mercury read the script since he also now magically knows Ruby's whole character arc about getting better after dropping her scythe. That's convenient and not at all silly sounding. Then after the headbutt, it doesn't even stop Mercury. Like, he's fine. He keeps fighting. And then she just actually bends down and just slowly picks up her weapon again. It's actually insane how silly this whole execution for the arc is. Okay, so this is a RWBY classic. In their attempt to, like, scientifically explain how Jean's semblance is working, they accidentally made it more confusing. They have this whole little moment where Nora and Jean talk just for the sole purpose of explaining what Jean's semblance actually is, but the way they try to explain it just made audience members even more confused. Great job, RT. Oh hey, Adam's here. I had forgotten. Blake's here with her army of subservience to humanity, and this is silly, but it is also cool. It's a double-edged sword. The big spotlight, the slow motion, the heavy hit, stylistically, it's cool, but story-wise, it's silly. This being the big rematch between Blake and Adam is bad. This is the first time she's faced him since the fall of Beacon, and Blake only has quippy one-liners to say, and Adam acts like a parody of a drama scene. Also, this one punch kind of also is the end of the White Fang plotline. After this, the background characters finish off the 3 grunts Adam brought with him, and then the White Fang is just done. The White Fang was the main adversaries for the RWBY girls for the first 3 volumes, and even volumes 4 and 5 up to this point heavily focused on the White Fang's political reach, especially from Blake's perspective. So to have that whole plot point all just kind of end just like that, well, it really makes you wonder what was even the point.
Yang, go!
Oh, they're not even trying anymore. Why did Yang have to go? When did they decide they had to go after the maidens? Why Yang? RWBY has super speed. Why did the villains become brain dead and just let her escape? Not even freaking trying. So they do put effort into the maiden fight. You can see that. It's just that, well, there's a lot going wrong in spite of that effort. The camera keeps plopping itself in places that don't help the flow of the action. The action in general is far too fast, making their strikes feel floaty and like they lack any effort. Their moves are more silly than anything, focusing on short-term spectacle over actually interesting shifts to the dynamic of the fight. The background is dark and makes it hard to even tell what the characters are doing. Some of the faces or poses we linger on are not flattering. The song is really bad. The two characters' color palettes and designs are so similar, and the camera's so far away so often that it's impossible to tell who's who half the time. So yeah, there was more effort put into this fight than others during the finale, which makes sense, this is the final boss of the volume, but this goes to show that you still need to have an understanding of cinematography, directing, and choreography. Otherwise, all that extra effort still won't make a difference. Best part of the episode, not gonna lie, Cinder's defeat is also one of the most iconic moments, right there next to Raven's maiden reveal. Vernal's surprise final move, Raven zipping behind Cinder, the big, explosive, magical strike that blows away Cinder's mask, the true fear in her eyes as she plummets. Amazing. Every complaint I had for the rest of the fight, this moment proved how to do all of the stuff right. Also, special shout out to the door. The glowing blue leaf pattern and folding elements that resemble flower petals is really, really cool. Spoilers for the future of RWBY, but Alice's vault is way lamer compared to this. This door actually feels like magic, and it's awesome. Worst part of the episode, clearly, they didn't know what Blake should really be doing with herself here. She doesn't even really get to do anything. She shows up, kind of stands around for a little bit, didn't even get an impressive monologue or anything. Everyone else in the scene is more notable than Blake, and this is supposed to be her big moment. She hits Adam, then just randomly wanders into the opening of the school like she's a tourist, then just runs away again. I theorize these last 4 episodes were originally just 1 or 2 episodes, but they decided to arbitrarily stretch them out, and I think Blake's story is the one that suffered the most from this, because the whole pacing and flow of events from her storyline here is so weirdly done. This lands as number 10, which means there's only 1 spot left for the last episode of the volume. And yeah, it's not gonna be good.
You're a jerk. You're a jerk. Jerk.
Okay, we finally made it. The last episode of Volume 5. The culmination of every mistake from this garbage pile of a season finally adds up to this moment. And here we go, let's dive in. Adding on to what I said for last episode, Blake goes back to confronting Adam, and it feels like a weird step backwards, right? Like, we were just here. She punched him, but now we're back to them doing that back and forth thing again? Like I said, I really think they goofed up with her plotline here, with weird script changing shenanigans. What's worse is Blake's one-liners aren't as good this time either, and this unfortunately feels weird next time Blake runs into Adam. She's cool, calm, putting Adam in his place, but next volume she's running around cowering in a panic. This moment in hindsight feels like false advertising. I thought Blake had grown to this moment, where she can face Adam strongly, but then they just strip that away from her later. Keeping things on this episode though, it's super dumb and lame how Adam just runs away. Not only was their quick little fight moment lazy looking, but this escape was stupid. They could have easily chased him down, and Blake's lame excuse obviously is just the writers trying to come up with some justification to their lazy decision to have the characters not do the cool things they should be easily able to do. A victim to their own writing decisions, apparently. They wanted Blake to confront Adam and give him a good, satisfying wallop. This is meant to be the end of the menagerie arc after all, but they also didn't want them to actually fight Adam, and Adam has to escape. So then why have them square up against Adam again? You wrote this. You could have written anything here. Here, let me fix it for you. After Blake knocks over Adam, she runs over into the fray to help Weiss and RWBY at the end of last episode. Rather than having her weirdly run back and forth between these two scenes, show Adam getting arrested, but then later we see a trail of dead officers and Blake realizes that Adam has escaped while she was teaming back up with her friends. I don't know. Anything other than this? The villains in this episode just give up and it's so dumb. Hazel's screaming is weird. Them all slowly walking closer to the heroes is really goofy, especially how Emerald is walking diagonally, kind of like leading towards the front of Hazel. Later we cut away from the villains for a bit, then Ruby's just like, okay, you give up now, and even though they all seem perfectly healthy still, they actually do just give up. Everyone stops to gawk at Yang, and none of these 3 geniuses think they should open fire on all the morons looking away from them. So the maiden fight in the last last episode was what I called the final boss. So what's the big climactic moment for this episode? Well, Yang and her mommy chatting a bit, of course. This feels like such a slap in the face after their bland conversation earlier in the volume. Oh, now you suddenly have a bunch of stuff you want to talk about? Where was all that energy back when Raven was monologuing about things we all already knew? Carrie has gone on record describing this as a fight with words. Well, given how toothless and wandering the fights in this volume have been as a whole, I'm not surprised Carrie seems to think this lazy back and forth conversation would count as a fight. It's the return of talking at each other.
Crow and Oz told me how the maiden powers were transferred. She would have had to have trusted you if you were in her final thoughts.
I'm sure they told you plenty, and you just sat and obeyed.
So this is actually a great example of what I really mean by that. Raven is taking a random, unimportant element of Yang's prior statement to focus on. Yang was really talking about the prior maiden, but instead, Raven talks about Yang learning new things from Crow and Ozpin. Yang is trying to direct the conversation in a certain direction, but her conversation partner is going in a different direction. And this is true for the whole scene. And it's not being played up like Raven is purposefully trying to withhold information or misdirect Yang because she's trying to get away with lying or something. It really just seems like Miles and Carrie have never actually had a real conversation with a human being before. Yang is taken aback that her bandit leader mother, who abandoned her as a baby and had already kidnapped one of Yang's closest friends, was willing to murder the prior Spring Maiden. Yang, I think you might just be stupid.
No matter how much training I put her through, she never learned. And with those powers, she would have been hunted her entire life.
Which is it, Mom? Are you merciful? Or are you a survivor?
Both. Obviously, Raven just said the Spring Maiden wasn't learning and would have been hunted. If Raven kept her in the bandit tribe, that also means she and her tribe would have been targeted too. It's not like Raven was going to let this incredibly powerful force just wander out of her camp or anything. See, it's a perfect example of the writers wanting there to be a conflict for the conversation, but they have nothing substantial to focus on. Too afraid to actually have Raven, waifu bait fan favorite, actually do something unforgivable. They like her design and want to bring her back later. So instead, Yang has to descend into a morally righteous twee child. Yang has to make up random arguments to get angry about because any actual introspection of Raven would show that there is nothing to her as a character. Then randomly, Yang suddenly makes it about her mommy abandonment issues. Like seriously, it comes out of nowhere.
It's not that simple. You don't know me. You don't know what I've been through.
You're right. I don't know you. I only know the Raven Dad told me about.
Again, it's not a conversation. They're just talking at each other. It makes it sound like the characters have no attention span.
You don't know the first thing about strength. You turn your back on people.
Yeah, you'd never do that.
We told her.
By going behind our backs?
Does that mean you let her escape? Robin is on our side.
We didn't know that for sure.
You run away when things get too hard?
Yeah, you would never ever do that, right?
Come on, everyone, out!
You put others in harm's way instead of yourself.
And Yang wouldn't ever do that because she knows what real strength is.
This way!
God, the blocking in the scene is terrible. Yang lazily doing circles around Raven for no reason. Her pathetic little point. It feels so scripted. Like when you're watching an amateur film and you can see the actors trying too hard to hit their marks. It's weird seeing something like that in animation. It's really not satisfying. The whole conversation. Nothing they say matters or leaves any impact. Raven becomes a pathetic crying baby because the teenager called her as smelly, then just runs away. Like, why did you even show up? You didn't fight Crow, and you didn't get the relic. Bernal died for no reason, you stupid loser. The animation sucked, their voice acting is emotionless and empty, the perfect finale for an equally soulless volume. The best part of the episode, Emerald's semblance. It's cool. It's a cool way to tie into that imagery from the opening, and this time, I actually think the animation here was a lot more impressive than what we see from the opening. Playing with the colors of the scene, and having our characters finally get fully caught up. Now knowing the face of the villain they've decided to fight against. It's memorable, and a cool, stretchy way of playing around with the model's limitations. Really, really awesome stuff. And gives us a glimpse of what the potential power level Emerald has. The worst part of the episode, this is gonna sound so dumb, it's RWBY collapsing.
Are you okay?
You should know by now, I really hate her voice. This sigh is earblood to me. It just itches that part of my brain that pisses me off. Also, like, drama baby, why are you making such a big deal? You didn't do anything all fight. You headbutt one guy once. Heck, you spent a huge chunk of the fight taking a nap. Don't be acting all exhausted. This was just an excuse to remind the audience who the main character is supposed to be. Shut up, RWBY. This is the second worst episode of the volume. The lack of a proper fight already made this pretty lame compared to the rest of the finale, but Yang and Raven's talk does not work as a proper climax for the volume, making the episode feel pointless and empty. On top of that, a lot of the conclusions for the episode were really not satisfying. Adam getting to run away because Blake just gives up, the White Fang is disbanded now, ending a multi-volume long political conflict virtually off screen. Yang's beef with Blake running away gets ignored so they can get their group hug. Oh, we only got a few seconds left. Just make the girls make up. Who cares? If we want, we can just retcon this plotline later in Volume 6, right? The villain's escape was weird. They kind of just stop fighting for no reason. Lionheart gets unceremoniously killed because, I don't know, the writers were bored of him already. Volume 5 stinks. It smells. It smells really bad. A stinky, stanky, bad volume. Truly the worst RWBY has ever been as a show. A dark, boring, annoying, stupid, ugly stain on its lineage as a show. 14 episodes long that really feel like it could have been trimmed down to 5 episodes max. In the long run, this volume stands as a monument of how little you can trust Rooster Teeth as a company. If they were willing to crap out a volume this obviously low quality, then clearly they're taking their own show for granted. So obviously willing to take the laziest way out if they think they could still make more money off of you, the viewer. Thank God Rooster Teeth shut down. Good riddance.
Alright, let's tell each other a secret about ourselves. I'm gonna go first. I hate you.
Shout out to my $10 patrons, you're all amazing. Andrew, Valhalla Knight, Chamomile, Classy Critic, Genital War Thunder, Jake, Amber, Hype Man, Scaring Crows, Not All That Evil, Holly, Messiah, Jacob, Ben's Sketchbook, Rain, Omega Fighter, Trash, Wild Pilot, Josh, Twisty, Juan, Bunkin Duncan, Hoodie Angel, Ranger, Hut Mutt Butt, Cloudy Days, The Enigma, Primaroon, Overhypen, Curse Knight, Plague, Unspoken, Tyrene, Thanos, Pandemonium, Peter, Aguirre, and BR Beginner.